Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Sahyaja, and I am from School of Commerce. On behalf of Presidency University, I thank you all for making time in your busy schedule to join us here this morning. It's been my pleasure to host this event, and I welcome you all to this workshop. I would like to thank Presidency University Management for letting us organize events with full of support. My special thanks to Dr. Gunjit Kaur ma'am, Dean, School of Management, and my sincere thanks to Dr. Balu sir, Assistant Dean, School of Commerce, and organizers, Dr. Varsha ma'am, Dr. Rajesh sir, and Professor Loke sir for organizing today's workshop. Today, we are here to listen and learn on art of writing article in journal. Moving right along, it is now my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Amit Kumar sir, Faculty of Business and Law. Sir had distinguished career in industry and academia and research for more than 8 years. Sir is currently employed at Newcastle Business School as a lecturer. He earned his PhD in Sustainable Business Strategy from the University of Newcastle in Australia. Co-opetition, corporate social responsibility, sustainability, entrepreneurship, and innovation are some of his research interests. Sir had presented papers and case studies at numerous international and national conferences such as Strategic Management Society and ICMC. Sir had articles in ABDC in ABC levels and published papers in reputed journals like IEEE Explore, Emerald, InterScience, and IGI Global. Sir holds a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, Master of Business Administration, and a postgraduate diploma in International Management. A heartfelt warm welcome to you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Over to you, sir. It's good to go. This thing is, mic is unmute. Mic, you have to unmute. It's now time. Over to you, sir. Your mic is unmute. Could you please make your mic unmute? Mic is unmute. We can't hear you.
Are you able to? Okay, fine. It was my fault. I'm sorry. Now it's coming. Okay, so let's continue with the topic of the presentation today. Okay, there was some slight problem in the technology over here, but now it got fixed. So there are two major objectives for today's presentation. And the first one is letting you prepare for the manuscript, that is the research article or the research paper. Whereas the second objective could be for today's presentation is to how to deal with the reviewing process, navigating through the peer-reviewed process. The moment you submit your articles to a particular journal, another story, another challenges starts from that day onwards. So how to take care of those revise and resubmit kind of process. So that is the second part. So our idea today will be having more emphasis on how to let you be ready for the research paper. So if I'm talking about the manuscript could be in any form. It could be in terms of literature review or systematic literature review, or it may be a kind of conceptual paper based on the theory, or it may be in the form of empirical study, could be qualitative in nature or quantitative in nature. So, I mean, the manuscript could be in any form. That's what I wanted to say. So, so let's start with, a good manuscript clearly answers at least three different questions. So what the editor team, what the reviewer team is looking for in your manuscript, it says that it has clearly it should clearly address three different questions. For example, the first one, why should anyone care about your research? And this goes back to the context or the motivation. What is the motivation of the researcher behind writing this paper? I mean, what motivates you? What triggered you? And what is the context over here? Try to understand this point very clearly. If I'm talking about the context, whether the context is new or whether it is the same context like developing nation, or whether it is the context of developed nation. So, or whether the motivation could vary from person to person. Whether you are motivated because of your past experiences, since you worked in the corporate sector, for example, in the marketing department. So maybe that could be the motivation. You have seen something, some activity, business activity over there, or whether the motivation could be from your, maybe currently we all are seeing the effect of COVID-19. So maybe that, COVID-19 situation, you have noticed that there is a short supply in the market. So maybe the global supply chain has been disrupted because of the COVID-19, because of the national border closure. So the motivation, identifying the motivation is very, very important. And as I said, it could vary from person to person. So your motivation for writing a paper could be different from others. And again, the motivation could be more in terms of respective field. Since you are in the marketing, you are in the finance, some topic related to the finance will be, of your area of interest. So the question is like, again, why, somebody will be interested in your research, reading your research. So that motivation is important. So idea is to make it very clear in your introduction itself, what is what is your motivation, or what is your context is all about. Whether the context is new or not, they wanted to check whether, it is coming out in your, first paragraph or not, as an introduction or not. The second question goes back to the method section, that is methodology. Why should anyone believe your claims? I mean, see, as a researcher, you are collecting some data, primary data, or you are working on some secondary data, and after that, running some analysis, you have some findings, and with the findings, you are making some claim. Claim in a sense, some variable like X is leading to Y. High satisfaction, customer satisfaction is leading to, better performance at the workplace. So, I mean, you are making this claim. The question is, why should we believe in your claim? I mean, we have to look at the methods. Which method did you apply? Whether it is based on qualitative study, quantitative study, or some sort of observation or some sort of experiment in the lab. So your method is another important aspect in your paper. And again, nowadays they are always looking at whether any new method has been taken into the consideration or it's just a kind of repetitive one. We'll talk about more about all this later on in the later slides, but I'm trying to give you an overview. I mean, the three questions which are very, very important. And then finally, they will look at the implication of your claim. So you made a claim, your finding, the question is, so what? So what in a question that why this result is important, why your research is important, why this finding is important, what are the implications for the manager? Or maybe for the business practices, the person or the people who are in the business practices. How this new finding will help them to improve their system, or come up with the more effectiveness or efficiency in the organization. So that implication is, again, the third important question they ask, to think about clearly, position your paper, keeping in mind all these three important questions. Okay, so moving further, this slide is very, very important. The essential element of a paper. So many of you are now, I'm hoping that you have joined this session to understand how to start with, and then what are the things which you will be taking care of in terms of writing a good paper, research paper or the journal articles, which ultimately you wanted to submit it in the top national or international journal. So, four basic element or essential element of a paper, starting with the theory. And I want you also think about, what the moment I'm taking care of each and every point, you also think about in your particular, field of teaching, and then start relating with those things, what I'm saying. So the first one is theory. Whether you are writing a paper with theory, taking consideration of some theory, or without theory, is very, very important. What I am suggesting is, if you are writing a paper without using any of the theory in your field, it's a totally waste of time. Please don't do that. I mean, theory is very, very important. Theory, not as such only the theory, it could be a perspective, it could be a framework or something, on which you can frame your argument. I mean, I wanted to give you some example over here. For example, if I wanted to make a claim saying that it's important to have a business world should take care of not only the economic performance, they should also take care of sustainability and social and environmental performance. If that is the argument in my paper, then there is a theory of there is something like a stakeholder theory. So if you are applying a stakeholder theory and then arguing it, that makes more sense instead of simply writing your argument. Integrating those theory from your own field is very, very important. Take another example of, there are a lot of different theories are in the field of motivation. What inspires employees to perform better at the workplace. So there are multiple theories, basic theories from Maslow hierarchy to you have something like equity theory or expectation to factor. There are a lot of theories out there. So again, the question is, if you are arguing about employee performance based on the motivation, then the question is which theory you are in support. I mean, you are using which theory into the consideration while framing your argument. Argument is like a statement which you wanted to position, you wanted to claim. So the theory is very, very important. Again, without the theory, don't start writing any theory. Good thing is, you read about what are the theories you have in your particular field, maybe in finance, in marketing, or maybe in HR. There will be a list of theories. There is another matter about we should not use the old traditional theories of 80s, 60s, 90s kind of thing. There are new theories nowadays. So again, that will be another story, that whether you are using the old theory or perspective, or whether your analysis is based on the new theory. So first thing is, first you make a list of the theories and then see which one has been extended with over a period of time. Because the previous theory, which was in 1950s or 80s, has been modified, has been added more features, more element to that. So you have the same theory with advanced understanding. Even that is fine. So that is the very first element, important element in your paper. Start thinking about the theory. And then the second one is the justification for every choice you have made. I mean, whatever is your concept in your paper, you need to provide why you are saying so, why you are saying not so. So you need to provide it theoretically or empirically. So what is the justification over here is, and that's why you need to go back to the literature. You need to find out what the existing researcher talks about this particular thing. or this particular concept, what is their understanding? You need to justify with the existing one. Otherwise, again, you will fail to meet the editorial expectation. So the moment if you are not using or applying the existing research paper to, I mean, your argument will be, just a kind of your perception. You won't be able to validate your argument. So it has to be validated theoretically as well as empirically. I mean, you look back to the empirical findings. Some of the findings in your field, somebody somewhere around the world has done that before. Even not exactly that before, but at least similar to that. So go back to those findings, empirical findings, and challenge or say that or repeat the same thing or try to challenge or try to come up with some counter argument. Say, try to justify it, not to justify. So it has to be based on existing literature. I mean, this is the greatest challenge in India. I agree with that, because most of the university, they don't have, I mean, where you will not have enough access to get those research articles. But it's very important. But still, what I'm saying is nowadays, there are multiple journals, they are now allowing you a free access. So even something is better than nothing. So if you might be finding nowadays more and more free access journal. So it's better to use those at least to understand and build on the argument. So you need to justify using the existing paper. And then you have to build up argument based on what has been done till date, and then what is the new thing you are adding to that research. The third important element is limitation and why your claim are still valid. Every research paper has some limitation. Maybe the context will be limitation that, okay, this study has been done in Australian context, or this one in Indian context. Whether the findings could be generalized globally or whether it is just in a particular context. So the limitation, maybe not only the contextual limitation, there could be a methodological limitation. Because if you are having a qualitative approach, there are some drawbacks, some limitation, because it is based on perception. If you are collecting the survey data or doing the qualitative stuff, some kind of quantitative stuff for hypothesis and regression analysis and all, you have the limitation over there. So every approach or every method has some limitation. You need to find out those limitations, because your result will be not valid. You can't claim, it can't be applicable everywhere. Why I'm saying that? Because the different culture has the different, different country has the different, intrinsic characteristics or the factors, or maybe the different cultural factors, social factors. So maybe the element will be changed. So maybe some findings which is in the Indian context will be not valid in the developed economy, in US context, or maybe in Australian context, or maybe in UK context, because the culture is different, purchasing power is different, or the people decision-making approach is different, long-term thinking is different. So maybe there are cultural or social, those factors are there. That's why you can't generalize your findings. That's why it's better to put the limitation that your findings must have some sort of limitation. So in your paper, if you're not writing the limitation, that means you are not coming up with the more concrete steps. So that is important. And going back to going for the fourth one, the contribution is very, very important. Contribution could be in terms of what newness you have come up with. What is new about your research? Contribution could be in terms of new theory. Maybe you are doing some sort of qualitative study in order to find something new for the first time, using the grounded methodology, grounded theory. The contribution could be theoretical contribution. Okay, or maybe you are just expanding the existing theory with adding more elements to that. more factors to the existing. Okay, for example, we have five factor personality, right? You are adding a sixth one. That could be a kind of, contribution in terms of existing framework or the theory. Or maybe coming up with the new leadership or motivation theory. Or maybe in the finance, how to deal with the risk and all, you're proposing a new risk framework. So it could be a kind of contribution. It should be a kind of contribution. You're from your side, in a sense, you or your team. Or maybe the second contribution could be in terms of practice. Remember I talked about previously, the implication has to be both theoretical implication as well as practical implication. So the practice, how the real world, see nowadays the business world is having a lot of issues, operational issues, external issues, internal issues, how your findings is going to support them, how your findings will benefit them. So I mean, as a manager, how their decision making will be improved if they use your research finding. You need to build argument around that. So the contribution goes, again, very, very important aspects. So keep in mind, these are the four essential elements of writing any of the paper, any of the journal paper or research paper. And this goes back to the, you could relate the common problem in writing of any of the manuscript. So in this slide, I have noted down 7 different aspects. I mean, you could think about these are like a kind of problem. Generally, has been found in a submission of any journal article or journal paper. And it's very important to understand problems, because now it is clear that okay, this could be a problem. You will better informed about this, that this could lead to the kind of rejection if not properly handled the particular issue. So the first problem is basic writing or presentation kind of thing. It's a very common one, especially if I talk about, there is a reason. I'm not saying that the ASEAN scholars are lacking in terms of the writing or presentation. I'm not in support of that. But what is my proposition, what is my take on this is, try to understand who are the editor-in-chief, who are the research team, editorial team, or the reviewer team, who are those? They are somewhere sitting in US, UK, a European country, or maybe in Australia. So they are the group of researcher, the moment you submit your paper to any of the international journal, it goes back to first it goes to the editor-in-chief, and then editorial team, and then they invite reviewer team. So most of the people, they are sitting in the advanced world. And the way of writing is different. It varies from us to how they write. So maybe slightly we can improve our way of writing in order to match their expectation. That is my take. So we are not saying that we are weak, but yes, we need to improve the writing or the presentation skill and try to meet their expectation. And it's easy to do this, fix this. If you have selected an international journal for any particular international journal for submitting your paper, what you can do is you just read some of the article which was already published in that journal. The moment if you read 2 or 3, you will understand the writing pattern, presentation style and everything. So it's easy to fix the first one. But the second one is very, very important. It's a fragmented, lacking integration, not at all coherent. So what it says, lacking integration. If you're writing a paper, there are different sections. Starting with, you have abstract, you have introduction, and then on top of that, you have literature discussion, and then you have your methods, your findings, and then you have conclusion, and then implication, contribution. So you have 5 or 6 different broad sections. What do you mean by lacking integration is, in a sense, that what you have written in your introduction or what your abstract saying is not there in the methods. Try to understand, it's not properly integrated. You have a different claim under the introduction, but your body or your analysis is doing something else. So that is the major concern in a paper. It needs to be. That's why it's better to have a kind of team. Instead of working alone, it's better to form a kind of team, research team, so that the work can be divided, and all these things can be taken care of. The third one is lacking significance in terms of originality or novelty. I mean, the significance, I started today like saying that why is there something new about this? What is the newness in your paper? Whether it is new or it is just a kind of repetitive research done by millions of researchers in the past. Whether the claim you are making is original or it is just kind of, a repetition. So again, looking at the novelty and originality is very, very important. And an editor-in-chief or the reviewer team will look at what is the new about in your paper. So simply, for example, just taking a topic like employee satisfaction lead to firm performance, improved firm performance. It is obvious. What is new about this? So selecting such topic for your research doesn't make sense. Because everybody knows that this goes A leads to B, this one lead to that. So you need to think about whether you are adding new way of measuring this to construct. You can think about, what should be the newness in your research question, in your context. Whether such a study has been done only in the developed economy, now you are trying to do it from the developing economy. That could be the newness in your context. Or maybe this sort of a study has been done through the case study, through the interview approach kind of thing. First time you are doing it through the observation or some experiment. That could be the newness in terms of the methods. So the newness could be anything in terms of context, in terms of your method, or in terms of your data. Previous study has been done a lot more about taking care of developing economy data. Now you're working on US specific financial data. So something new, newness has to be. Newness can have a different aspect. You need to look at, how new is that. The fourth one goes back to the lacking through the grounding in the related literature. So while having you need to understand, you need to take this approach as a holistic one. It's not like only reading the few papers will give you the big idea. So you need to read the literature, what it says about. And it says that sometimes you need to go beyond. You need to read what is not there in the literature. Both the things, what they have stated, and you also read, you need to be good enough in terms of understanding what is not stated by them. And that will be the opportunity for you. If there is some claim in that study, that is done. But you need to have ability to understand, conceptual ability to understand what has been not said in that one. And that will give you the opportunity to look from the other lens. So again, literature review is very, very important. So you can go back, trace it back, right? Maybe 2 decades back, or 20 years back, what are the things has been done in your particular field of research. And then you can think about, extrapolating what is going on currently. So moving backward and then forward. What is like currently, what they talk about, for example, entrepreneurship, what the literature, reading the literature will give you an idea what has been done till date and what is not. But again, if you read only the 1990s paper, 20 years back paper, and understanding that if you are framing the research question, that is not a good. Because in the last 20 years, there are several scholars has already updated that field. They have already contributed to that particular field. So in order to understand the problem in the literature or identifying the gaps in the literature, you need to be very updated. You need to look at the latest research. You need to read the latest article. That will give you the clear indication what is done, what is not done. The fifth one is poor research design or the methods. I mean, every section has an importance. If you're writing a paper, abstract has another importance, introduction has another importance, your body, your literature, your findings, discussion, every section has importance. So most of the time, people, they give more emphasis on their introduction, or maybe discussing more about their findings and their implication, but they don't give much emphasis in terms of methods. So again, that could be a kind of lacking in your paper. So it has to be, you need to understand the different approaches in terms of method. Whether it is two-stage sequential exploratory research, or whether it is empirical research using the case study based discussion. So, you need to dig it more. Simply saying that it is based on interview and it is based on the survey data is not enough. It's not enough. You need to be more specific, whether it is two-stage or one-stage, or whether it is followed by qualitative, or whether it is mixed method. So there are, more discussion. If you read the research method papers or his book, you will be able to understand it in a better way. So idea is to write more about, bring out more clarity in terms of your method. How did you approach to that particular question, research question? And sometimes, you need to clearly argue why this particular method is important to achieve that particular objective, research objective, or that particular goal. Why this one is the best one? Why not the other method or other approach is, why you have not taken? So you need to argue all those things clearly. If it is not properly designed or properly written down on the paper, it will be a problem. Lack of proper structure and organization is not a big thing. Simply, idea is to look at 4 or 5 different articles, how those who have been published in that particular journal, you will understand that structure and how to organize and all right. And the last one is inadequate discussion or implication section. So again, this goes back to the so what? You have something as a finding, so what? Why should we bother about your finding? So whether your finding has some implication for manager or some implication for theory discussion, so somebody has to get benefit from your findings. Whether a group of researcher or whether a group of practitioner in the real world, somebody should get benefited. If you are not able to position that in terms of the implication for the theory or implication for the business practitioners, probably it won't be a kind of good paper. So why I have divided into 4 into 3, it says that now there is something like disk reject. There is the terminology they use it as a disk reject. The moment you ready with your paper and you submit to any of the international journal for say, the first thing they will do is the editor-in-chief will quickly go through that, and they will decide within a week or within 2 or 3 days whether they wanted this paper to get reviewed by their team or not. So they have the power to reject it. So that is the disk reject, right? So if you are lacking somewhere in point number 5, 6, and 7, probably you won't get a chance of disk reject because your paper has some novelty, very good grounded literature, it's properly integrated, but it's lacking in the research design or the structure. Okay, these things are minor. 5.5, 6, 7 are the minor one. So probably if you are good in point number 1 to 4, you won't get a disk reject. And then the editor will, put it forward to the research team for the review. And maybe the reviewer will point out that we need to have more discussion in the method section, or maybe try to include one more section on the implication kind of thing, or maybe just rename it, make it in a better structure, provide this structure like this. So there will be no rejection, disk rejection for the point number 5, 6, 7. But surely, if you're lacking, your paper is lacking in a point 1, 2, 3, and 4, there will be straightway disk reject. So you should be very, very, very careful, for that. So at this point of time, I just wanted to know whether there is any question. Okay, maybe I forgot to tell you, feel free to put any of the question you have while I'm speaking. Use the chat box so that, maybe Dr. Varsa will be there to respond some of the question, and I will be happy to handle those one during the question and answer session towards the end. So use the chat box, or maybe if you wanted, just unmute and speak. I will be happy to respond at that particular point of time. Okay, so I'm hoping that you got at least some sense of how to get rid of some of the negative aspects in your paper. So these 7 points are very, very important. But what we understood before is the key elements of the paper. So that one is very, very important. Theory has to be there, justification for every argument, limitation, and the contribution. So, and before that, we talked about 3 important questions they look at in the paper. What is the motivation? I mean, you should not simply write, your motivation should be very, very clear. I mean, it's very challenging to write the first paragraph of your introduction. It's very, very challenging because you need to come up clearly with what is the problem in the literature. So you could say that you read the paper and you identify this is the problem. Nobody yet, by this point of time, nobody tried to solve it, or maybe nobody tried to look at from this lens, new lens, a new perspective. So something has to be, you need to write it several times to make it, perfect. Okay, so moving further, since I have devoted much more time in speaking about the common problems, so there are detailed discussion, and after the presentation, I will share with you the PowerPoint presentation. So feel free to read all the points which are more in detail. So what it says in terms of writing and presentation, it seems like many of the manuscripts give a feeling of first rough draft. So if you're still not convinced with the quality of your paper, please don't submit it. So give more time. Lacking of integration and all, I discuss about this. So this one is again, I think I told you, I wanted to repeat this one, that avoid using the theories or the model or the perspective which was 70s, 80s or 90s. Because after that, there are a lot of advancement has been, a lot of new theories has been, or new element has been added on the, even, if you are using what I said, the personality theory, the new one is there, motivational new theories are coming up, behavioral theories are there, and again in the behavioral theory, there are new researchers, they are coming with the new sort of insights they provide. So try to look at what is the recent, which theory most, the researcher they prefer to argue to argue your statement. So you need to be very much updated in terms of understanding those framework in your particular field. And there is a chances that you must avoid overly researched topic like leadership, like motivation, overly researched, or entrepreneurship, or maybe think about, for example, entrepreneurship, or startup firms and all, women entrepreneurship, all these things are heavily researched. But the new trends are coming in terms of migrant entrepreneurship, how the migrant people moving from one country to another country, making a business and developing a sustainable business. So the more and more, so you need to keep looking at the recent paper, keep reading the recent paper. That will give you the indication what currently is going on, what most of the researchers are heading to, towards kind of thing. So even the entrepreneurship is a big field, but the new domain you need to identify which one is less researched or less taken care by the existing field of researcher. And what is very, very important, the third point is again very important, just justifying and saying that you are doing or you are replicating the same study in the context of India it was done in China or in the US, and you are saying now I'm doing it with the help of Indian survey or Indian data is not enough. That is not a contextual contribution. That is not a newness. Simply changing the context is not. So in that case, you need to come up with more newness in terms of maybe in the scale of measurement, or maybe the new methods, or maybe the new. So you need to have more newness, a combination of newness, maybe across introduction, in your context, in your methods, in your findings. So you try to have a combination of newness too before submitting to the journal. Okay, so the question over here is, you got by this point of time some basic understanding that what are the key elements which are important. Okay, so we can download research paper for literature review. Okay, this is very good question, like from where? As I said, this is the limitation for researchers, most of the researchers in India, because not every institutions, they subscribe, they purchase the access of having access, they provide the access to the researcher or to the PhD or maybe the faculty members to have a free access of some of the journals. So you won't be, I mean, it's a challenge, but yes, what I could say that you need to look at the freely access kind of material. So one good thing is use the Google Scholar, and you type your, which keywords, you type the keyword. So maybe those who are freely available, you will see in the right hand side, the PDF version will be available. All right, so maybe if you just click that one, that will take you to the that particular file. So that is the one way. I mean, use the Google Scholar, use your keywords and see which one is limited and which one is not limited. So that is one way. And the second way is maybe you quickly search around on the Google that which are the journal which are publicly available, free of cost. So you will get a kind of list of, for example, I know in my field, corporate social responsibility and sustainability, I know a journal sustainability, as the name is sustainability. All the articles listed over there is free of cost. You just go and download it. So there are more publishers who are nowadays making it public. All right. So you need to be, you need to do some sort of initial effort. You need to put some time to explore those ones. It has to be more relevant to your field of study. But if you have access, maybe if your institution has bought access to those database, maybe a Scopus one, or maybe Elsevier, or maybe Emerald, these are the database. If they have already purchased, then probably your job will be much more easy kind of thing, or even the Ibasco. So you need to find out like from where you can grab those articles. But before reading the articles doesn't make sense. Just thinking about, based on your perception, you're thinking about your motivation, you are framing the research questions, and then you are doing some survey and finding, doesn't make sense. Maybe you will be able to publish in some of the national journal with the less credibility and all. It won't go in the international journal and publication. At this point of time, we prefer to submit. I mean, there are various classification of the good journal and who are the reputed journal or international journal. So I would suggest you to go through the rank. There are 2 or 3 different standards up there, global standards. For example, in Australia and all, we use ABDC journal ranking. That is Australian Business Dean Council. They have the list of around 4,000 different journals in the category of A star, A, B, and C category. So maybe you just Google it, ABDC. I'm requesting Varsa to just write in the chat box, ABDC. You just explore, download the ranking list of the journal, and then you try to position whether you think that it is, it will go through the A star, that is on the top, or whether it go through the B or C. You need to, your team has to decide. So that is one listing. Another listing is in the Europe. In the European university, they prefer to have APS. And Varsa, please write on APS. And I think it's again, it's a business ABS ranking. So you just Google it, you will get the another list of journal ranking. So that is so you just explore. I mean, these are the standard one, globally standard, internationally standard one journal articles. Try to position, try to submit in any of the journal which looks like more relevant, right, in terms of your area of research. Whether it is marketing or supply chain, or whether it is sport management or it's sustainability, you need to search it out and then you just position it. Okay, so at this point of time, let me continue. So the question is how to proceed from here. So quickly, the question is which topic. So let's have like some more discussion, because I'm sticking to my time. So I have more 20 minutes to speak, and then I will be happy to take your question for the next 20-25 minutes. So which topic? So how to decide with the topic, and this is again a big challenging task. Like there are a lot of, since you are teaching field of marketing, several subjects in marketing, or maybe in the finance, or maybe in the HR, or maybe in the general management, you have a lot of ideas, a lot of concept in your mind. What to do? I mean, which topic to decide. So you need to give a lot of thoughts on that one. You discuss in a team, make a team of 2 or 3, and then try to get feedback, exchange the feedback in terms of, and then you tackle on the significant issues, like, I mean, which issue could be more significant in terms of, there are some tendency to favor the familiar over the unfamiliar. You will think about, exploring more on the leadership skill, because that is more enchanting, more interesting, and you feel closer to the leadership theory, not the other theory. So try to look at which has been done much in a sense, and try to look at not the mature field of topic. Try to think about the new topic in that particular field. For example, I said migrant entrepreneur is the new topic which everybody wanted to know. How people are moving to the different country for the job and for the income and all, and they set up a business, and how they grow over there, what kind of institutional support. So those are the new field of emerging area of study in the field of entrepreneurship. Okay, so topic is you need to spend time. So what it says, and this slide is important, I wanted to have some discussion over here is, so it's good to start with multiple concept, multiple construct, multiple theories, or multiple studies. It's good to, I mean, don't just look at some of the qualitative study. Look at what findings is coming out from the survey data, or country specific qualitative data, or what conceptual paper is talking about this topic. Look at from the multiple studies. Look at the multiple theories. And I have seen a good paper nowadays. They used to apply, while arguing, they used to apply 2 or 3 different theories. So simply having one theory, you could have argument. I mean, one theory is arguing and one theory is counter arguing in a such way that this theory suggests this A leads to B, whereas another theory suggests that it's vice versa, something like that. So look at from the multiple theories to position or to argue your statement. And you think about multiple construct. I think I have more slide where you will understand that what do you mean by different, like multiple construct. Construct like independent variable, dependent variable, moderating variable, or mediating variable. So you have a list of variables. So these variables are actually the construct. So if you are saying using kind of simple conceptual framework, A is leading to B in one paper, that is not enough. Look at the multiple construct, which could act as a moderator, which could act as a mediator, or which could act as a so think on those lines, multiple constructs. So start with those ambiguous scope. Make it more broad at the beginning. Don't be narrow down. Don't take a narrow approach at the beginning. Take a broader approach at the beginning, and slowly you move, and then be more specific over a period of time. Okay, so topic choice you understood. Introduction. So the introduction is like, as I said in your paper, introduction is trying to set the hook, it should be very, very effective. I'm not sure how many of you have gone through one of my paper, which is currently under review in A-Star Journal, MDC A-Star Journal. I think I have next slide. So I will let you know. So it has to be very effective. I mean, say, if your introduction failed to, failed to create the curiosity inside the editor-in-chief, they will simply say no. I mean, it has to be more, quite interesting, more effective enough to let reviewer or, decision maker, I mean, say, editor-in-chief to think about, oh, it seems like something is very, very much new, or maybe create something like, it allows the readers to be, feel like challenging. Okay, this is something new, very interesting, something like that. You need to set that hook in your introduction. If introduction failed, you fail to position all these things in your introduction, why they will care about your rest of the paper? They will simply say no, reject, that's it. So it has to be very, very effective. So it's better to use some sort of quote or some sort of effective statement. Try to have some sort of speak about something, some problem in the literature. Nobody has addressed this. I mean, you need to read the literature before making such claim, but you must do that. So introduction is very, very important. So spend more time on the introduction than any other part of the paper. So write it in the beginning of the, okay, there are some steps you need to, okay. You need to spend more time in introduction, because introduction is the thing. If they convince in the introduction, then only they will go through the literature, your methods, your findings. Otherwise, they will simply say no to your paper. So spend more time on an introduction and try to have a set of problem. You see, this one I think is very important to speak at this point of time. Your introduction should convey the problem. Problem in a sense. There could be two different types of problem. One problem is which you read the paper, existing journal paper or article, and they are saying that this is the problem not resolved yet. Another problem could be the practical problem, real world problems. For example, the sustainability or CSR is a big problem. So that is the problem, like it's difficult for the business firm to meet the social standard or environmental standards. You need to find out the problem. In your introduction, you need to clearly say, you need to clearly position those problems or the issue which is there in the literature or in the business world. And then you will convince them that my approach or my suggested strategy will help them to be more effective or will bring out new solution to the business world. So something like everything goes, I mean, all these discussions should go inside that introduction. You need to convince them that, yes, this is something, is this newness kind of thing. Okay, so if you have gone through my paper, which is currently under the review, this is my first, paragraph. And I have taken the help of what? United Nations SDG goals, Sustainable Development Goals. So, you need to set the hook. Why your motivation is important, your study or context is important. And I'm trying to say that in my paper, I'm trying to help institution to achieve SDGs, that is Sustainable Development Goals, which is on the top agenda around the world for many institutions and the business world players. So see the first sentence itself, I'm trying to start with a very broad objective and saying that this is a big goal which we wanted to achieve, and I'm proposing some new way to look at this problem and then new approach to resolve this problem. So you need to set the hook, you need to make it more, impact, it has to be a big impact in terms of, so this, I mean, you just play around, spend more time on your introduction. Then followed by, you have something like literature survey, tracing back and tracing forward. I mean, this one is very important. If you get a paper, you got access of any of the paper, maybe it is freely available to you, you read that paper, and then if you find that this paper is relevant for your research, then go through the reference list at the last. In the reference list, you will have another set of 60 or 70 or 100 different journal article list. So, because that paper is based on that 70 or 80 different papers which was already published. So going backward, look at what was done. So maybe a smart way is to quickly go through that list and select which paper could be more relevant for your current research. Otherwise, moving forward, so trace it back to and find out what was like more recent in the last 2-3 years or maybe the last year. So, for example, the COVID-19 situation, you won't get much of information before because it was not there. But in the last 2 years, we have seen that a lot of work in the different domain, keeping in a context of COVID-19, how the supply chain, for example, interrupted globally because of the COVID-19, or what was the issue inside the organization in terms of employee nowadays they started working remotely from their house or from home or other location. What happened to the organization performance? What happened to the organization culture? What happened to the organization? What happened to the organizational structure, decision-making power, whether it is absolute or whether it is still relevant. I mean, think about the COVID-19 itself. Give you a kind of very interesting kind of setting, can provide you very good context to study, and that's what like most of this researcher is now trying to grab those opportunities. So always keep in mind, keep yourself open in terms of grabbing the opportunities because of the context, because the COVID-19 is a completely new context. It was not before. Then you have something like proactive versus passive learning, and then form a study group. So literature survey, is go back and look at the current one, and then you have a balanced view of what is going on around that particular topic, around that particular field of study. Then you have something like hypothesis. So there is a difference between hypothesis and proposition. And if you are writing a kind of quantitative paper based on survey data or company-specific financial data and all, so that means you must be having some sort of hypothesis. Hypothesis is very simple to understand. A particular variable A is leading to particular variable B. So that is the hypothesis. A leads to B. It's a kind of causal relationship between two or more variables. So that is the hypothesis. Proposition is more in terms of conceptual paper. You are proposing some statement. So I'm not talking much more about the proposition. Most of the paper they have hypothesis. So the question over here is the grounding of the hypothesis. If you are making a claim that certain things will lead to certain outcomes, what are the arguments you have in support? What the existing studies tells about this relationship? What are the counter argument? See, there are studies there are mixed findings around the corporate social responsibility will lead to improved firm performance. There are a group of researchers, they are saying yes, it improves. Another set of researchers says no, it doesn't improve. And the third set of researchers says that it depends, or maybe it's a mixed one. It's an inconclusive. It's not coming out which way around, whether corporate social responsibility leads to improved firm performance or whether it is vice versa. So you see, you need to discuss all those from the different perspective. That is about the grounding of hypothesis. So only simply saying that A lead to B is not enough. Giving a support of some literature is not enough. Is there any research which says other way around? Is there any opposite findings? Is there any findings which contradict what you are saying? You need to bring out all these things in your discussion. Then only it will make sense. Otherwise, it will be kind of incomplete. Any question, please feel free to ask in between. So there are more stuffs you can read it, like grounding around how to frame the hypothesis. So again, you should not frame multiple hypotheses in a single paper. So again, there is a question whether Whether can we have a set of 10 hypotheses in one paper? Please don't do that. Whether we can have multiple means more than 10 construct in one paper, please don't do that. Because one research paper has to be very, very specific. As I said, it has to be limited. It has to be a boundary in every context, in every math, every sense, I mean to say. So try to make it more unique. Yeah, if you think that something fits, then you just add as a variable. Otherwise, if something doesn't make sense, take it out. So more than, even if you see good A or A star paper, they don't have more than 3 hypotheses, 2 or 3 hypotheses. And they greed more in terms of building their argument. Because of the limited hypothesis, they spend more time in terms of, proving that why this is happening, why this is not happening. But if you have 10 set of hypotheses, probably you will have a limited discussion around each hypothesis, and that will be a kind of, surface level of analysis. It won't be a kind of more in-depth analysis. So you need to be very careful in terms of how many hypotheses you should say. So not ideally more than 2 or 3 in a good paper. And then have an in-depth analysis, in-depth discussion, in-depth implication, in-depth contribution in your theory, in your practices. I think that will be wonderful, your approach will be more wonderful. For example, in my paper, this was the hypothesis, whether the competition in CSR is positively associated with financial performance or social performance. So, the hypothesis is easy to understand. You have the independent variable, that is co-opetition in CSR. Co-opetition is like collaborating with competing firms. So, see what I said, traditionally, if I will look at how the company they try to solve the sustainability or CSR issue, maybe the collaborative approach that comes around 1980s, and then again competitive approach that is started around 2000 or 1990s. So these 2 approaches were there, which I understood when I was doing my PhD research. Then I have come up with the new approach. That is the newness, and I am positioning that the new approach is a combination of both competition and collaboration. So what I am suggesting is, in order to solve those big issues, right, sustainable or CSR issues, it's better to collaborate with competing firms. So that is the hypothesis I have. The competition could lead to the improved financial performance. That was the newness. Because the previous study only talked about collaborative approach or competitive approach, not the competitive approach. That was my contribution. That was my newness. Try to understand. You need to come up with something new. Then only they will care about your paper. Otherwise, they will simply put it down. So so this hypothesis is easy to understand and easy to formulate, but keeping in mind the newness in mind. Okay. So at this point of time, I think this slide just indicates there are software to do the proper referencing. I don't think so that any of the journal will reject your paper simply saying that your in-text citation or your reference list is not properly done. You will get a kind of revise and resubmit. They will allow you to improve it in the second round or the third round. But there are some software which is publicly freely available, I could say. Probably the Mendeley is freely available. You can download it or maybe just ask, because these softwares are not much costly. You can request your institution to purchase it, and then you can use it. I mean, once you use the Microsoft Word for writing your manuscript or the paper, it will be more friendly for you. It will be user friendly to do some sort of in-text citation, and automatically it will have a kind of list of reference list. So you won't give much more emphasis on the technical aspects of writing the referencing list. So okay, so these are the software which is available. Over here, for example, we are using EndNote. It is institutional. It is bought here, so we are using it and for your paper. Okay, another story over here is choosing the research design. So you understood how to choose the topic. It's a bit cumbersome, more complex. Spend more time on topic, because that is the initial point. It has to be it has to be a consensus in your team that okay, this topic I'm also feeling comfortable. You also, and it seems like everybody is able to contribute Otherwise, if you think that in your group 2 is able to contribute to or not, please drop that idea, drop that topic. It's, equal contribution is important. Not exactly equal theoretically, I mean, rationally, but what I'm saying is everybody, you should form a team of 2 or 3 or 4 based on the complementary, who can complement the skills. Someone is good in terms of writing methods, someone is good in terms of doing some sort of analysis or using the SPSS or using R, or someone is good in terms of writing, giving a kind of final editing and writing the introduction. So you should look at, those complementary, capabilities as well while making a team. How to decide a research design? So research design is more about, what kind of, conceptual framework you are proposing. So again, see, initially when I submitted this paper to another journal before this journal, I was having more indicators. There were around, over here you see 3 different hypotheses, but in the previous version it was around 5 or 6. Few more indicators, or few more independent variables. It was more complex. So one of the reviewers suggested me to pin down some of the things, take it out, and make it more simple. Then we took that suggestion, and then we further improved. We deleted, take out some of the analysis or some of the indicators from this study. So what I suggest, it should not be more complex in terms of your conceptual framework has to be simple in terms of understanding. Which one is independent variable, cooptation, which one is the dependent variable, performance, and who are the moderator. It's a power and state. So easy to understand. Maybe probably if you read my paper, you will be able to understand more. So you need to be very careful in terms of making that conceptual framework or the model, because this model is important for the reviewer. They will see the newness over here, whether it is newness in terms of new indicator, because I said nobody has done the cooptation to solve the CSR or sustainability issue. So mine one was so you see the construct is the new. First time I'm using and I'm trying to operationalize it. So that was the newness. And then again, I see which theoretical framework I have used, which theory I have used. I have used mainly stakeholder theory. Because the stakeholder theory suggests that you need to take care of all the all the stakeholders in order to achieve a particular goal. So in my paper, I'm trying to argue that competitor is not direct stakeholder, but indirectly a kind of stakeholders who has indirect impact because of my business activity. So why not include competitors also as a set of in the set of stakeholders? So that was my argument, which I'm trying to position. Right. So you see the theoretical framework of my research is based on the stakeholder theory. Though I had a discussion around other theories like resource-based theory or dynamic capability theory, network perspective, I do have a small brief discussion, but mostly it is all around the stakeholder theory. And you see the 2 moderators, the power and state, they are coming from stakeholder theory. So it's not only just describing or talking about or using the theory. You should have application of the theory in terms of some construct or measuring some of the items. So the power and state are the moderators, and they are the relational attributes. If you read more about the stakeholder theory. So that is the application of the stakeholder theory over here. So these are the different way you can have a kind of innovative models, independent to dependent, or maybe 3 independent, 1 dependent. I mean, there could be any possibilities. You need to explore it. I will provide you the PowerPoint presentation. You think about and sit together and find out, come up with the multiple construct, and then you decide which construct will go to the independent, which one go to the dependent, or which one could be moderating or mediating. So there could be newness. You need to bring out the newness, maybe using the innovative models. So there are more examples. So it's entirely up to you which one you wanted to position as which variable. There are some philosophical assumption in terms of it's just like if you have the quantitative approach, you should have some discussion about around, positivism or post-positivism. See, it's not a rocket science, it's easy to understand. For example, group of people who are in the positivism, they say that there is a causal relationship between A and B. So that's why it's a more quantitative approach. Whereas the qualitative approach, which is based on interview data, it's more like interpretation, right? It's more about interpreting what the speaker has said, what the CEO has said. So it's the approach is more like criticism or kind of. So I mean, these are the things you should understand. It will help you to write that particular section, that particular methodology section. That's why it is important. So methods and research and the result, you need to. Okay, this one is like talks about the result and all, right? And meantime, you have how can you gather the quality data? Okay, I mean, easy to understand. You can have survey data, you can have, the existing secondary data, for example, some, some national data, or maybe, and otherwise you can have a kind of experiment, or you can have some sort of existing case study and kind of thing. So there are various sources of, sourcing the data for your study. So it totally depends on the method, which method you are adopting. And accordingly, you will look for the data. For example, quantitative data, you will look for the survey data, or kind of thing. If you have the qualitative approach, maybe you will look for the interview data. Or if you have the experiment kind of thing, maybe that will be more kind of you look at some of the observation in the lab and all. So looking at the right sort of data should be aligned with the kind of approach you have in your paper. And finally, it leads to the discussion and implication. So there are three different major problems in the discussion. It says that, just repeating your result is not a discussion. And this is again a very challenging task. Even when I was doing my PhD, and I was keep repeating the same result in the discussion, and my supervisor was saying, no, this is wrong. You should just delete it and think about, and that put me on the more and more thinking mindset kind of thing. I was sleeping and I was thinking, okay. I was every time traveling in the bus, and I was thinking, okay, how to what is the implication? So simply repeating the result is not a discussion. Discussion should be more than that. So the good discussion should provide a clear, compelling answer to the original research question. So again, your discussion has to be aligned with your research question in the introduction. And again, in introduction, all the discussion in the introduction should lead to the framing of the 3 or 2 broad research question. So the discussion is very, very important. Again, it should not be overarching, but it should not be very mean. It has to be balanced. And more important thing is, it has to be aligned with what you have stated in your introduction, what your research objective. It has to be around that only. It should not be away from that. There are more steps for the discussion section. You just read it. Okay, what do the journal look for in a paper? So I think this is a good slide, which I wanted to spend before taking your question. So I think it's a kind of repetition. So a good journal paper will look at which issue you are trying to address, which problem, whether it is a problem in the industry or whether it is a problem in the literature. What do you want it to solve? Why this paper is interesting? What do you know? What do we know? And what do we don't know about this topic? So that's why you need to argument and you need to counter argument. You need to provide a complete picture in a balanced way. What is the value addition and why this topic is important? Which theory you are using? What are your methods? So all those things, what we have discussed initially as 4 major elements of a good paper. This is just a kind of repetition. Okay, so what it says, the reality of writing, it says that improve your chances of success by finding and use of the good role model. So try to have a conceptual model try to have a kind of better framing of that one and get the feedback prior to the submission or even data collection. So this one is another very important step. So you have opportunity to put your paper in one of the conference, national conference, international conference, or in the seminar, or even university nowadays they conduct research seminar. Try to participate in that one and try to get the feedback. Based on the feedback, keep improving because it won't be a perfect. I mean, it may take several round of improvement. You need to build a good research collaboration. What is important here is a good paper can take 2 to 3 years to be a kind of mature one. Frankly speaking, I'm in the 3rd year now. And from the last 3 years, I'm trying to position my paper in A-star journal. It takes time. I had already 3 rejection in A-star, and this is the 4th A-star journal I'm posting it. So every time I get feedback, it's a long list of feedback. Certain things you are doable, certain things are not doable. That's why we need to jump to the another journal kind of thing. So you can start with the A-star journal for some year of time. If it is not going through, then you can think about A level of journal. And even if that is not going, try to push it in the B level of. And I'm sure with the time it will be fine because with a lot of improvements, probably it will be easy. So if you start your journey from the top, probably easy to put it somewhere in the BA or A category. But it takes time, so you need to have much more patience over here if you want it to get published in A. Even we had a paper with Varsha, Dr. Varsha, we published it in ABDC A publication, and it took around 1.5 years around to finally get approval. It takes time, surely it takes time. Premature submission will be rejected. We know that now this point of time. Some of the suggestion is, I'm not sure, again, this goes back to if you have the access to the top journal, then only it is possible. Otherwise, look at the freely available some of the journal, but without reading the article, don't decide your research question, don't choose the topic. Don't submit the first draft and get the feedback and learn to open the feedback. So I think it's better to have some sort of question round now. So I will spend next 15 or 20 minutes around for the question you have. Some of the questions which I have received, how to write an article in a broad journal. I think already we covered with that one. What is the right number of objectives in the article? So it should not be more than 2. I mean, don't write a list of 4 or 5. Just like it should not be more than 2 or 3 hypotheses. I mean, better to be more specific in terms of 1 or 2. One broad objective is fine, or maybe you can break it out as a 2 or 3, set of 2 or 3. But more than that is not, is good. Don't try to make a paper covering everything. No, don't do that. Would like to publish in a Scopus Index journal. Yes, you have the freedom to submit anywhere globally, anywhere around the world. So you just Google it, the list of Scopus Index journal list you have, and then you just try to match which one will be more appropriate. I mean, if you are in the marketing department, you should not submit in Australian Financial Journal. So just be careful in terms of, and every journal has a kind of objective. Try to see the objective and scope of that particular journal. Opening through that website, you will see, and you will see that whether it is matching with your work or not. Then be selective, and then you submit it. Don't try to submit to the journal if they are asking some processing charge or some fee, because probably those are substandard one. Probably. So probably try to not, good journal A or a star journal, they are free. There is no cost in terms of submission and publication. It's free. Which will be helpful. Okay. Is there any restriction for the words? Again, every journal has their own guidelines. So that is available in that particular website page. For example, this journal, most of the journal, if I understand your question, most of the journal, they have the requirement of 4,000 to 5,000 words, excluding reference list. So that is the, general one, I could say. But some of the journal, for example, they allow 8,000 words. Even some of the the qualitative research journal, they allow 10,000 to 12,000. So it depends The right answer is it depends on the journal. So you read that scope and aim and guideline or instruction of that particular journal, it varies. Because if your work is coming around 8,000 words, you should not force it in the 4,000 word journal. So you look at some of the other journal which gives a kind of flexibility in terms of, otherwise they will simply reject, right? Saying that it is over limit. How to write and review articles. Review articles are more like a kind of literature review, systematic literature review, or review article is, it's a kind of maybe the bibliography kind of study. What has been done before, and you are trying to see, what has not been done. You will do some sort of analysis on the existing research paper, set of 400 or 500 or 300 papers, and you will see some of the pattern. What are the things has been explored heavily? What are the things are like on a moderate level? What are the areas or what are the concept or the clusters which is under, attempted? So that sort of review article is very important to write. If you have a good team, please write that one and try to give more emphasis around what has not been done. That will give a kind of, chances for the future researcher to explore more and more. So what are the points to be noted while reading an article? So we already covered, reading an article, you should be very careful. You should not spend much time if some of the article is not at all related to your area of interest. So it's good to have, first you download the paper if it is freely available, or if it is in your access. Try to collaborate with some of the global researchers who are doing some research in PhD in other foreign universities. They have, kind of much freely access. So there are other ways you can resolve those issues by just playing around the research team. So even when I was doing my research, I was, supported many of the PhD scholars in India, giving the kind of, so there are ways to overcome the challenges. It's just like how smart you are in doing, but it has to be ethical way. So the question is, going back, how to, so don't write everything, don't read everything about every paper. Look, just read the abstract first and then see the topic. If topic is good enough to read, then read the abstract. And then abstract will decide, give you the indication whether you should take that paper, include in that paper for your analysis or not. If abstract is fine, then only you think about reading the introduction. And even, in introduction, if you read, that will be more than enough to give you some sort of, support some of your argument. That will be more than enough. No need to read the method section or findings and all. Doesn't make much sense. Unless until, you are, okay. Okay, so do we have more questions? Because I have another 10 minutes. Varsha?
Yes. Yes, sir. You are getting the question. Please, the dynamic nature of CSR as result. Hope you can read this question, right?
Yes, I could read, yes, yeah.
Yes, sir.
So dynamic nature of CSR has resulted in several research studies on the topic in the Indian context and are much needed for the hour. Okay, article with the reputation are published in the standard publication. Could you please suggest doing similar research to justify the findings of other authors would have been? Okay. This one could be very interesting. You're talking about the dynamic nature of CSR. This could be very interesting, and I understand that what you are trying to say. So could you suggest some of the research? Doing the research, okay, why not? Even I have not enough, dig it from the dynamic perspective of CSR. But I agree with you. This is really something which we could be very enchanting, something can bring out in terms of the newness. So I could see that there are a lot of potential in this direction. Even from today onwards, I will start looking on dynamic nature of CSR and sustainability. Though we know that the process of handling CSR and sustainability is more dynamic because the world is changing, the global climate issues, the warming, and there are a lot of pressing issues, social issues around the world. We can't solve all those, but yes. They keep changing, so it's good to have something on those lines. Did that give you some answer, Pramulai? You can speak to me.
Yes, sir. Please.
Okay, so did you get your answer?
I got the answers, sir. So
Okay, okay. It seems like very promising area of research. I mean, I'm sure you. I mean, it seems like you're doing going in the right direction. Keep doing that, and let me know any point of time if something comes out. Probably, I will be happy to collaborate with you. Okay. Any other question, please? Feel free to speak. I mean, now you can just unmute yourself and ask directly to me. I have another 10 minutes for you. So can you suggest a few sites from where we can download research? Okay, that we have seen. ABDS and ABS ranking is fine. Okay.
There is a question in the Google form. Articles, where exactly they have to publish? That's a question. I got it from the Google form.
Could you please repeat which article?
Where to publish manuscript? Where to publish? Positioning the manuscript in different journals. Yeah.
I mean, okay, so I mean, where to publish is entirely as a researcher, you have a freedom to choose where you wanted to publish it. I mean, whether you wanted to publish it in the national journal or whether it is an international journal. Yes, I agree with that. International journal has more standards, more strict guidelines and the criteria, and the peer review team or the reviewer team will be will be they will be they feel free to reject because because they are looking for something as a kind of global standards or kind of thing. You are free to choose any of the journal, nationally or internationally, but I suggested you to look at, ABDC journal list. Around 4,000 journal names are there. You just pick up which one is more relevant in your areas and try to go through that particular website and submit it. You log in it, just submit it. Even you have, some of the journal in Indian context also, it's Scopus, indexed journal in Indian scenario. So maybe you can think about that also. But it's totally entirely up to you where you want it to position. Whether you think that you have the originality, you have the newness, you can compete globally, or whether you wanted to have. If you think about it, you have just changed the context. Some study has been done in Europe. You have just done it in for example, in India. That doesn't make much more contribution in a sense, newness in a sense. Probably you should not thinking about positioning globally or internationally, maybe in the domestic. But if you have more contribution, some more new measures to measure, or new method of new approach or new findings, maybe you can think about. But always it's good to start with standard one, high standard one. You will get a very good review from the team. So even if it is rejected, that is fine. But the good thing is you will get a good comments, which again you can sit and improve and develop it further. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. And there is one more question in chat.
Yeah.
How to identify cloned journals?
That's why if you don't sit on the Google and find out the journal names, don't do that. Simply go to the ABDC list, simply go to the ABS list, simply go to the Scopus index list, just use that. Those are not the clone ones. Did you get my point? Does that make sense to you?
Ma'am, you can feel free to unmute yourself and you can ask ma'am. And there is one more question. Very often the journals are removed from the list. How to identify a standard journal?
I mean, which list? I'm not sure. Are you talking about the ABDC list or ABS list or Scopus index list?
Sir.
Yeah,
We
yes.
usually have a UGC list, and very often they are removing some thousands of journals from the list. So if we publish in that journal, whether that publication will be worth for our research?
That's why strongly this is a very good question, Dr. what I'm saying, Dr. Ray, okay, what I'm suggesting is, that's why if you think that you have a quality work, please go through the international ranking journal. I'm sure the international ranking journal is equally valid while taking your promotion, while taking care of your development in an institution in India. So it's better to work and move to those lists. And ABDC is a kind of list of 4,000 or 6,000, very big list. So try to put yourself, your paper in some, A or A star or B or C category, whatever. But those are more reliable and they don't change it. ABDC list changes in every 4 years. That is more stability compared to the what we have in India, that they keep changing. So it's better to refer to that. Did you get that?
Yes, sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Good afternoon,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah. Last question. Yeah.
Yes, good
Afternoon.
afternoon, sir. Actually, sir, I'm working on the SDG goals paper right now. So how to contact once the paper is done with a proper level, perfect level, with all the things. So what is the next procedure? How to contact for the SDG goals thing? Should I contact Emerald Elsevier or directly?
No,
So
no,
can
no,
you
no,
please?
no. No, you should not contact anyone at this point of. Once you are ready, try to attend some of the seminar, present it in some of the conferences, Indian or international conferences, and try to get some feedback. If you have done that as well, and then you are ready to have a final ready for the submission, you simply go through that journal list, and it's better to pick up some initially somewhere in A star or A journal, because the people or person who are sitting over there, they are having very perfect understanding about what you are doing. So even if you will not make it through, they will give you a very good feedback that you can build up again, and again you can have you can reposition again in the same journal, or maybe on the same level of journal, maybe A or A star. Nobody is stopping you. You n number of times you can submit, resubmit. It's a continuous way, a long way. Yeah. Any more questions?
So thank you, sir.
Yeah, sure. So I think at this point of time, I have another class 7 to 8. So if you have any question, my email address is there on the PowerPoint presentation. Feel free to reach me. Feel free to reach Dr. Versa. She'll be always there to help you at any point of time. Especially she is brilliant in terms of as a researcher. She's very hardworking. So it's good to have like more collaboration and kind of thing. But anyway, thank you once again, management of Presidency University, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you once again, Dr. Versa, for organizing such a wonderful event. So thank you so much. And with that note, yes.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for your good speak on about how to publish a paper and how really one has to articulate their papers. So this would really benefit the participants, and also it would help them to come up with publications in a very standard journals. On behalf of School of Commerce and all the other faculties, I would really thank you for being a speaker of this session. And there is one small and one small thing to all participants: kindly fill the feedback form which is circulated in the chat box.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Rajesh. Thank you. Thanks for your appreciation.
Yeah, thank you.
On this note, thank you. I'm closing it, and you will be having access of the video also, which is being recorded. I will deal with that one later on. See you. Bye. Take care.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.